The county is eyeing a new spot for Hawaii Island's houseless. The Village 9 area of Kealakekei is being considered as a more permanent solution to the temporary Camp Kekaha location currently serving a portion of Kona's relocated homeless population. The Hawaii County Council recently discussed the prospect with the mayor's executive assistant, Lance Naimi.
The future Camp Kekaha was quickly constructed emergency campsite to house the homeless at the Old Kona Airport who are being asked to leave. There's a more planned for and larger site to house the Camp Kekaha, which has currently about 26 residents. Yes. And other homeless in the Kona area. And we were looking at a larger site to house up to 100 people, which would include those that are homeless in their vehicles. So we'd have some vehicle parking area. And we're looking at the area near the West Hawaii Civic Center, below the Ana Keakololi Highway and on the Kailua side of Kealakekei Parkway, known as Village 9. There's been a number of sites that we've been looking at, and this is currently the site that has infrastructure, water, sewer, and electricity, and that's one of the reasons that site is being looked at. Village 9 is a site with about 35 acres of developable land, and the county is negotiating a deal with the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation that would secure about 15 to 20 acres of this state-owned land for the homeless site. The county is seeking a right of entry permit, which would allow the county to construct a temporary encampment on 5 acres of the 15 to 20 acres parcel sought for the homeless. And the HHFDC plans to build out affordable rental housing on the balance of the parcel, which is about 15 acres. Our biggest challenge for the development of I'm calling it Camp Kekaha 2, and any other homeless encampments in other areas of our island will be getting the support from the community, nearby communities, and also the issue of funding. I want to emphasize, I've already got some concerns that came out of the newspaper article about the site. And we have been looking at various different sites, and this is currently the site that we're looking at. But Roy Takemoto, who's doing our planning issues, mentions that there's going to have to be an environmental assessment, which will mean that we will have to get public input. So we are already getting a lot of input from the community about their concerns. So we're going to look at hearing what their concerns are and move forward as we develop the details of what we're going to do with this site. The issue on funding is an important one. The county would assume most of the startup costs, including those associated with preparing the right of entry permit and conducting the environmental assessment. The county might also foot the bill for preparing the land, which will include grading and acquiring the necessary permits. The other large costs involved would be the type of shelter modality, which we're looking at different modalities. I like the igloo shelters, and we'll share more about that as we move forward. They're easy to construct, they're movable, they can handle hurricane force winds, and they can also be units that will be for emergency shelter as well as permanent supportive housing. So it has that possibility. There are other issues that would require costs in security, porta potties, and someone to manage a site. And so those are all the issues that we're working on at the present time. So with that, we welcome any questions that you folks may have.
And I'm just going to focus a little bit on this site at Villages 9 because, yes, we have been getting, I'm sure, the same emails that you're getting and our state representatives are getting, and there's some concern about the location. And I, too, have some concerns. I've been thinking about it, though, and I know every site that we've looked at, maybe there was like 13 that we were slowly eliminating one at a time till there was none left, and this seemed to be a very good option for a lot of reasons. And it isn't impossible, I think, for us to mitigate some of the concerns. And one of the ideas that I had, and I wondered if this is possible to look at as we move forward, is that the access, the ingress and egress to the site could be on the police station side, so that it would be more conducive for the people living there if they did have to go to town to go that way, rather than having people wandering maybe uphill towards the high school. Or I'm just saying that might be one way to mitigate the concerns, because it is kind of a far walk uphill to get to the high school. From people might be visualizing the site as right across from the high school, but it's actually quite a ways down the hill. I don't know how many blocks that is, but I think it's possible to arrange the ingress and egress so that you would be encouraging that access towards the police station side of the property. So that might work. But I like your ideas. I think we could become a model, as some of the testifiers mentioned, to help put people back into our community in a very productive way. There's enough land there to do some of the things that were mentioned, gardening or moving people to work sites where they could be helping the county do some maintenance and stuff. I think you have a lot of really good plans, and I feel optimistic, and I think you have good people, and I'm glad that you've moved to the administration level where you can really focus. And so I'd like to say that even though I do have concerns about that site, as people have mentioned, but I think if you could, in the planning phase, think about that idea I just put out, and maybe that would help, and we get to, before we go to the EIS or the EA process of public hearings, I would hate to see us get that far and then have the community still be upset. So I'd say before we put a lot of time and money into developing the EIS and the EA, that we already work out that site plan so that we've mitigated some of the issues. I know the other issue is that it is far from town and far from services, and we'd have to provide some kind of transportation. I know that's also an issue, but I think you can work that one out if we're willing to spend the resources there, which it seems like we are. So I'll yield to my other council members at this time, but I thank you for this presentation and update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eoff. Mr. Kanuha.
I'm not a big fan of not in my backyard type of situation, because, us living here on this island, this is all our backyard, so if we can work to figure out the best way to help those that need the most help, I'm there. And so that's why, I understand the anxiety to have this specific location on the highest priority list to move forward for housing our homeless. But, if we can get all the concerns, if we can mitigate all of that beforehand and work with the community and try to make this a positive location, I'm all for doing all that beforehand. And hopefully it can work out, because I know the other sites that we looked at previously, it was almost impossible to do.